religion and science. Within their definitive forms, the laws of physics only adhere to physical creation, hence the term physics. Of that which exists beyond the tangible, the physical, the laws of physics themselves disintegrate into paradoxical chaos and complexities. It is without a doubt that certain elements existing to our perception cannot be quantified, whereby they do not adhere to physics. By definition, even the essence of human existence cannot adhere to physics beyond its biological form and earthly attachment. Hence the reason why secular science cannot explain our existence without the fabricated Darwinian theory of evolution. When addressing the essence of human existence, both the nafs, the soul, and the ruh, the spirit, supersede scientific rationale. Given this, the questions then posed are these: should science be the charter to which religion must conform? Or should science be the branch which only studies the physicality of existence within the governance of religion? By all accounts, science defines the quantitative and perceptible outlines of tangibility, providing an explanation that adheres to the logical, rational, and plausible faculties of human perception. This faculty is defined as the mind and intellect, or aql. The essence of intelligence is defined as a harmonious integration between the brain and the conscious, which is the wholesome integration between the body and the soul, the jism and the nafs. The reasoning is provided by the fact that intelligence is not only a neurological function, but an integration of sense and actuation as well. In technical terms, one can define it as the input of information, the processing of information, and the corresponding output of information. For example, as a sensor, the eyes can be used to image objects for the brain to process, and as the brain directs the eyes in vector, the eyes can also be used to see as a responsive actuator. Similarly, the ears can receive information and can also be directed to respond to sound. The mouth can be used to taste as well as speak. The nose can be used to smell as well as draw breath. These sensory and actuation fields tend to further into every component of the body, including internal organs, which can react to positive and negative influences upon them. In isolation, every bodily interaction with its surroundings is purely an informative interaction, and in several cases, the brain, as the central processor, can choose to interact with relevant inputs and discard irrelevant ones. Just as well, every input and output remains informatory for as long as it is left unprocessed. It is only when a conscious interaction occurs that relevant information is processed and computed, thereafter allocated to a decisive reaction and stored to memory. Conscious intervention, hence, occurs on an individualistic level, the identity designated to each body, each one unique in its own creation. This is the nafs, the soul, the actuality of individual existence. This is the object to which a name or title is attached, to which character and personality are attached, and to which memory, thought, intuition, and inspiration are delivered and affiliated. Across the spectrum, beyond logic and philosophy, there exists the other half of human existence, that which gives the human its humanity, the life force, the spirit, the ruh. Logic and rationality lose their quantitative forms in the realm of the ruh, for here only that which makes sense can be perceived, independent of plausibility. The integration between the conscious and the spirit, or the nafs and the ruh, gives the human a faculty of emotion. This integration is housed within the heart, or qalb. This is not the physical organ, just as the mind is not a physical organ. It is here that the existence of the human being bears significance on sublime and divine planes. It is here that the human can feel the positive elements of love, affection, sorrow, sympathy, empathy, and even the negative elements of despair, hate, envy, arrogance, ego, and anger. The conflict of the nafs is that it is ever in a turmoil to balance itself between the material and physical attachments of the jism and the spiritual attachments of the ruh. It is ever in turmoil between logic and emotion, between rationality and sense. The test upon the nafs, therefore, is in its ability to successfully bring harmony to the human being's existence under the regulated and divinely governed guidelines of religion. This harmony endows the human being with a unique ability, which is the ability to absorb knowledge from two worlds. The modern world has struggled, and to a great part is succeeding in elaborately airing that knowledge can only be acquired from one source. The institutions commissioned by the modern secular world. In doing so, it has widely misled humanity to believe that the physical, material knowledge of this world is all that exists. What we know from the Holy Quran and the teachings of Islam is that knowledge comes from two sources, physical and spiritual. And the point of intersection of both worlds of knowledge is defined in Surah Kahf in the event of Nabi Musa and Al-Khidr as Majma'ul Bahrain, where two oceans meet. The earthly knowledge of science and the spiritual knowledge of religion. What is the difference? Or rather, why is it relevant to make this distinction? There is a crude and detrimental, cancerous ideology arising within the society of the modern age, that science is the defining factor of our existence, hence the defining factor of religion. By extension, society is ever inclining towards science to explain the rationality of religion. And the consequence of this doctrine is that science cannot explain God. The resultant sees the emergence of atheistic belief, giving unwarranted precedence to secularism, where a vast populace then claims that it is, quote, spiritual but not religious. The question begged then is, how do you find spirituality if you cannot even adhere to an actuality of religion, let alone Islam? The entirety of human existence is as a result of cosmological creation. And by definition, the study of the cosmos is as a direct result of human perception. Without human observation, the science of cosmology would only be glittering stars in the night sky, with a flat Earth as the center of the observable universe. Undoubtedly, it is religion that has provided the proof and extensive definition of the cosmos and human existence. The variance is that science corroborates the observable universe on defined scales, while religion defines the cosmos in poetic and elegant actualities. In truth, the defined scales are irrelevant to the believer who understands that a defined life on earth within physical and biological confines is only temporary. To the believer's heart, that world beyond, defined in a poetic and eloquent sense, is far more enticing than this. The Holy Quran explains this strange correlation between the limitation of materialism and abundant gratification of the world beyond. Surah Ad-Duha, Ayah 4 and 5. وَلَلْ آخِرَةُ, and surely the hereafter, خَيْرٌ لَكَ, is better for you, مِنَ الْأُولَى, than the first. وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ, and your Lord will provide you. فَتَرْضَى, and you will be satisfied. It follows, therefore, that the scientific mind, Muslim or non-Muslim, must first come to terms with itself. Is the thirst for science for a benefit of this world or the other? Because science itself can only define this world. Hence, science itself only exists on an informative plane. Science becomes knowledge when the mind comprehends a divinity to creation, rather than a simplistic rationale. The balance between jism and ruh, or the Majma'ul Bahrain, can only be attained when one is on a pursuit of true knowledge, rather than a mere informative inquisition. And the origin of this journey must begin with a clear understanding that knowledge is from a source divine, not the university. The cosmos and the study of cosmology is truly a remarkable and mesmerizing realm. Oh, what a wonder upon mankind to observe the earth from the peaks of Saturn's moons, or to point at the Milky Way from the vastness of the Andromeda. Oh, what a wonder upon mankind to fully comprehend with utmost satisfaction the how and why of the universe's existence, rather than just reading the what from a textbook full of numbers, words, and diagrams. Saddening it is to see the fellow man intrigued not with the existence of the cosmos, but with how much money he made today, or what new ambition he will pursue tomorrow. In his Mishkat al-Anwar, the niche of light, Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali defines one of the defects of visual sight as apprehending the large as small, or the significant as insignificant. For instance, the eye sees the sun as the size of a small plate, and the stars as specks of dust on a black canvas, which he describes as silver pieces scattered upon a carpet of azure. However, intelligence perceives the stars and the sun to be much larger, multitudes of the earth. To the human eye, the stars seem stationary within the moment, or the shadow cast by the sun as standing still. But intelligence perceives it to be moving constantly, as it grows, lengthening with a motion of time and space. Surah Al-Furqan, verse 45 and 46. the stars speeding with every distance through the vastness of space. Surah Ad-Dariyah, Ayah 47. It should be noted that what Al-Ghazali and others like him define as intelligence, as aql, is not only the scientific faculty of logic and rationality, but what we have earlier described as the harmonious realm of Majma'ul Bahrain, the convergence of earthly knowledge and spiritual knowledge. The faculty of intelligence in the context of this study is defined as the inner eye by which Nur from Allah Almighty illuminates the path of he who is seeking Majma'ul Bahrain. The light of intelligence is acquired through the processes of converting sensory information into comprehensible knowledge through thought and contemplation, as well as through spiritual pursuit. This analysis is made without the acknowledgement of error on the part of the observer, by attributing the knowledge received to be the absolute truth from Allah Almighty, and by attributing Allah Almighty to be the knower of absolute truth. It follows, therefore, that while the intelligence of man does see, not everything it sees exists on the same plane. Knowledge is acquired as well as gifted into intelligence by way of intuition or inspiration. The rational faculty of man attempts to sift between fact and what it perceives as fiction, by noting that one thing cannot be both with and without an origin. It cannot be existent and non-existent at the same time. For example, granted the existence of black, it follows that color should also exist, but color does not include black. Another example is that of man and beast, that man can become beast-like in nature, but a beast cannot become man, thus refuting the doctrine of man having evolved from ape. This example of evolution falls under the category of speculative theorems and requires a definitive spark of truth or an absolute light to illuminate the validity within the thought for the intelligence to see the truth. To secular science, this notion is highly displeasing and upsetting because it requires science to acknowledge one thing, that above every textbook, only the Holy Quran can shed absolute light. The verses of the Holy Quran in relation to intelligence have the value of sunlight to the sensory eye. Without the sun, the human eye could perceive very little, if anything. Now, again, science will argue that without the sun, the human eye will eventually, quote, evolve and adapt to its sunless surroundings. But arguments remain speculative until proven fact, and the challenge upon science is to present the human eye that can see in the dark without light or any prosthetic assistance. Here we are understanding how divine revelation of Allah, which is the absolute form of knowledge in our world, can act as the shining light illuminating the pathway of the believer by way of delivering sight to the inner eye through intelligence. This claim can be found in the Holy Quran itself, Surah At-Taghabun, Ayah 8. فَآمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. So believe in Allah and His Messenger. وَنُورِ الَّذِي أَنزَلْنَا. And the light of the Holy Quran which we have sent down. وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرٌ. And Allah is all aware of what you do. It follows, therefore, that the Holy Quran befits all human perception of light unto intellectual sight, just as the sun fulfills its role of illuminating our visual and sensory world. The Quran represents the light of Allah as one of the branches from a blessed and pure olive tree. Surah An-Nur, Ayah 35. The branch that delivers absolute knowledge to man's inner eye. Allah Almighty says, Ya ayyuhan nas, O you of mankind, Qad ja'akum burhanun. Surely it has come to you a convincing proof, irrefutable proof, min rabbikum, from your Lord. Wa anzalna, and we have sent down ilaykum, to you, nuran mubina, a light so clear. Surah An-Nisa, Ayah 174.